we've swung so far away from that natural living that actually, no, we can't just stop learning and ignore everything and trust that our body will heal, because we have so much wiring in our nervous system that is not pure. We're very unable to accurately sense something called neuroception, which is danger or safety.
I don't know if you've been seeing what I've been seeing, but every time I turn around on social media, there's someone talking about a vagus nerve hack or a nervous system hack, or talking about how the nervous system is responsible for all of your health problems. Now, while there is a little bit of truth in nervous system and health, there's a lot of things being blown out of proportion right now online. So, of course, I've brought in my dear friend and nervous system expert, Irene Lyon, to really just talk about this and talk about some of the, dare I say, gaslighting that has been happening around health and nervous system, and how to understand and kind of get through some of that confusion. What does nervous system regulation actually mean? And we really dive into a lot of these topics here that I think you're going to find very helpful. Now, the day this is coming out, I believe February 26th, Irene has opened registration for her 12-week program, which I've personally done, Smart Body, Smart Mind. It will be open until March the 4th, if I'm correct. And that information will be down in the show notes. She also has a ton of free resources and a free YouTube channel. That's how I found her personally, was just going through all of her videos and just binge watching, because it's a rabbit hole that leads upon one another. And so if you aren't necessarily ready to jump into a full program, I definitely recommend following her over on Instagram and definitely on YouTube for her educational content. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Irene Lyon, and make sure to check out all those links down in the show notes. A lot of people are quick to talk about the benefits of sunlight, but what gets often missed in the conversation is the benefit of darkness and the importance of protecting yourself from blue and green light after sunset. That is why I choose Viva Rays as my go-to source for protecting my circadian rhythms. You can use the code YOGI to save 15% off at Viva Rays. Now, you may have seen some of these studies popping up. I call them fear mongering about blue blockers not being effective. And that is a partial truth, because when you use blue blockers that are clear or that have not been tested with a spectrometer to actually block what they say they do, they will not protect your circadian rhythms. And they are not catching those key wavelengths that you need to be blocking in order for your body to be able to repair, for you to make melatonin, which is a master antioxidant. And artificial light at night has been in the scientific literature extensively linked to a host of hormonal cancers, obesity, diabetes, and all sorts of metabolic issues. That, again, is why I choose Viva Rays as my go-to source for protecting my circadian rhythms, to allow my body to get adequate darkness at night. You can use the code YOGI to save 15% over at Viva Rays, and you can actually trust that they block the frequencies of light that they say they do. Thanks to Viva Rays for sponsoring today's podcast. When it comes to your overall health, the health of your teeth and the products that you use in your mouth are typically an afterthought for most people. But recently, fluoride has been coming to center stage in the news, and there is a lot of talk around fluoride being an endocrine disruptor, a thyroid disruptor, and causing a lot of health issues. So what on earth are you supposed to use for your teeth? Because most conventional toothpastes contain fluoride. Well, I have really been enjoying the Wellness toothpaste. It is a naturally whitening toothpaste, and it contains hydroxyapatite, which is a mineral that your teeth are actually made of, and it helps to remineralize your teeth. It is B Corp certified, which is a lengthy and detailed process to be approved as B Corp, and shows their commitment to the environment, community workers, and customers. It contains aloe vera, which eliminates disease-causing bacteria, whitens teeth, and reduces staining. Green tea is also shown to fight bacteria that leads to tooth decay. You can check out Wellness with the link in the show notes. We have special bundles for our listeners only, and it's something I've really been enjoying and recommend. So make sure to head down to the show notes and check out Wellness and their fantastic toothpaste. To try Wellness and get an exclusive listener discount, go to wellness.com/Sarah K. That's WELLNESSE. You can also check out the link down in the show notes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Evolving Wellness Podcast. I have my dear friend and returning guest, Irene Lyon, here today. Welcome, Irene.
Hey, Sarah. Hello, hello.
Yeah, we were sitting here just talking about all the things, catching up as friends do. And just like what is happening right now in the alternative health world that is potentially, dare I say, dangerous, definitely harmful.
Yeah.
And I think that it's, I don't know, there's a lot of gaslighting going on. There's a lot of nervous system hacking going on. There's so many places we could go with this, but it's always interesting to check in with you and talk about these different topics, because you're on the front lines, kind of like I am, in talking with people specifically that have been the receiver of some of this information, and not in a good way, right?
Yeah. Yeah. As you were talking there, it makes me think about just the trajectory of health in general. Because I didn't get into this work through the nervous system and trauma. I was originally in exercise science and sports nutrition and biomedical science and fitness. And even in the 90s, there were fads and hacks and and all the, it's this weird human obsession to have to find like shiny things and try them because they're super fun and new and magical. And anybody who knows, let's say, fitness, is just like getting healthier. And I know there's other elements to this, but like at the end of the day, it's about consistency, and it's about something that works for you. And it's about at least enjoying a little bit. And sometimes it is about pushing and doing things that you don't want to do until you realize, oh, wow, this is really helping me. And so if I just look at that trajectory of how I saw the fitness world shift and change, pretty much everybody knows, you got to move every day. You got to do some strength. You got to stay flexible. You need to have good balance. You need good muscle tissue, all these tissue quality. You need hydration. That's what you're really good at. And now, of course, we know we need sunlight. And I think as we move forward, my hope is that we just get a little more sane in the basics.
Yeah.
But the thing is that the basics are still quite complex.
Yes.
But, when you start to feel these basics, which I teach about so much in my work through the nervous system, it's like almost there's like a gift from, if you want to call it the gods, source, nature, cosmic, whatever, it doesn't matter what you name it. It's like we're biological beings that need certain things, just like the plants and the animals need certain things. And we are like trying to overcomplicate ourselves, but there is complication because we're also living in a world that is not natural.
Right. That's the other thing. Because people, this morning, I was told that my post was rubbish.
Oh, dear. Okay. What was rubbish? Tell me what was rubbish about it, Sarah.
I said that food was a secondary timekeeper behind light.
Oh.
Rubbish, because the cavemen ate when they could and they hunted when they could. And I was like, yeah, but we're not that. Like, what? I don't know. That people, they forget. The cavemen did not have these guys. They didn't have cell phones. Okay. The cavemen didn't have blue light. The cavemen didn't have computers. They didn't have Wi-Fi. They didn't have any of this stuff. They didn't have Pepsi coming from the fountain or Coca-Cola. Like we can no longer use that argument in many
Yeah.
regards. Yes, in some regards, I have an appreciation for eating ancestrally,
Yeah.
living ancestrally, going outside, connecting, but we can't ignore the fact that there are so many stressors around us constantly that
Mm-hmm.
the cavemen did not have. Yes, they died basically probably by
Yeah.
getting killed by prey or freezing
Yeah.
to death or the elements. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of advantages to the things we have now, but just to, I don't know, that whole thing when people come at me with that, I'm just like, that's not really a valuable argument
Yeah.
in many regards, to be honest with you.
To piggyback off of that, a thought experiment I had a little while ago or just last week, the concept that your body knows how to heal.
Oh, I love that you're bringing this up.
Yeah, because
Love this.
yeah,
Okay.
let me riff off of this. The body
Yes.
knows how to
Yes.
heal. And what I've been seeing, so for anybody here who's interested in, we're here to talk a little bit about my course, Smart Body, Smart Mind. We'll be honest, right? And what's happening is people have exhausted them with trying so many quick fix techniques, quick fix courses that they're like, I can't do any more. I need to stop and I'll just let my body take care of itself because it knows exactly what it needs. Now, that is true back in the day
When
when
we be
when
in
we were
nature.
cavemen.
Yeah. When we could be in
Right?
nature. Yeah. There was
We,
more
we ha-
available.
Yeah, we have that. And yeah, back in the day, we had ritual and song and dance and community, and our ancestors didn't abuse us.
Mhm.
Our parents weren't punishing us the way that they do now because of all the trauma in the world. I mean, I'm just painting a very quick picture. I'm not saying that, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, there wasn't some kind of abuse and trauma. Of course, there would have been. But if we think of that utopic, just like everyone is living in harmony, nomadic, yeah, back then we had serious ancient wisdom as the natives do, right?
Mhm.
Here in
Mhm.
Canada and for you, American natives. But the thing is we've swung, I'm going to use the visual of a pendulum. We've swung so far away from that natural living that actually, no, we can't just stop learning and ignore everything and trust that our body will heal because we have so much wiring
Mhm.
in our nervous system that is not pure. We
Mhm.
don't know how to listen to our interoceptive insides. We don't know how to, and this is going to sound really negative, but I'm going to go positive, right? We're very unable to accurately sense something called neuroception, which is
Yes.
perception of danger or safety. We feel a sensation and we think something is constantly wrong with us, which means when something is wrong with us, we can't accurately perceive a real problem.
Mhm.
Um, Even fever, the amount of people I've heard over the last few weeks who've been sick and they're just trying to get rid of their fever, trying to suppress the fever. It's like, well, the fever is actually there for a reason, but we've vilified fever, for example,
Yep.
that when I get a fever, even though it sucks a little bit, it's like, ugh, yuck, I don't like this. But oh, wait, my system's doing something important to help myself recover, detox, whatever you want to call it. So I've really been on this. I've been observing this, Sarah, this thing of like, be very careful because there's a level of bypass I'm
Yep.
now seeing. Back in like the early 2000s, it was spiritual bypass,
Yep.
all mindfulness, love and light,
Yep.
ascending, all that, the secret and the law of attraction, which has merit in some regards.
Definitely. There's value and
There's,
there's always a little bit of truth in everything,
yeah,
honestly. Like
exactly.
there's always a little truth there. And there's definitely value in the magic
Yeah,
of believing and things like that. But
prayer, 100%. So, but what happened, I think, and this is just my own theory, thought experiment, is people have become so exhausted and saturated with all the biohacks and quick fixes
mhm.
that they're just exhausted and they don't want to do anything anymore. And knowing people that have left society to live in the woods, my husband was one of these. He's like, I'm just going to leave society, live in the woods in beautiful nature. eating organic food, walking on the ground barefoot, which he did. He swam in rivers, natural hot springs. That did not cure his PTSD and
Yeah.
IBS.
Yeah.
He needed to do actual trauma work, nervous system work, because what occurred to him to get those complex PTSD elements in IBS wasn't natural.
Right.
It was due to his parental figures abusing him
Right.
physically, emotionally, verbally. That's not how children should be raised
Right.
at all. An animal in the wild would never have that happen to them from their mother. A mother cub would never abuse her baby cubs. A cat would never, in the wild abuse their kittens and all this. They just wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And so we're dealing with this whole other situation that is not of nature. It is, in many ways, one could say human made.
Yeah.
So in order to heal these things, I have seen we need a little bit of human help harnessing the power of biology and nature, but we can't just have one or the other.
Agree.
Does that make sense?
Totally. Absolutely. And I think a lot of people are just feeling so frustrated because of what you said. There's just so much information out there. And I think the message a lot of people are getting is like, there's a, you're just not doing it right. Like I got that with
try harder.
Yeah, try harder, you're not doing it right. And this piece with the nervous system, I think, is again, it's popular. Like there's all these nervous system influencers now, and they're saying everything is the nervous system. Everything is, oh, it wasn't the mold, it wasn't the parasites, it wasn't this. And I'll argue, no, it probably wasn't. It was mitochondria that were not able to be resilient enough to ward those things off for various reasons, which could have a nervous system element at play.
Yeah.
But there's so many other things at play than just pointing the finger at the one thing. But this nervous system influencer thing is wild because that's, and I get like, yeah, there's a little bit of truth to that. But then the solution is these like vagus nerve exercises. And, it's wild. It's crazy,
It's confusing for people too.
Yeah, it really is very confusing. It's extremely confusing.
It's confusing, and I understand the confusion because a layman, I don't love that term, but we know what it means, a general person who doesn't have training to the degree that we do, that I do, they're not going to know the difference. And because people are wanting relief, and I get it, like people want relief from their symptoms and their pain and their suffering and their mental anguish and their fear and their inability to sleep. Like they want that to get better. But what I've seen is there needs to be a process of almost initiation, foundation building to understand why is your system like that. And often it's like, oh, that's so negative. You're talking about all these trauma things, Irene. And it's like, well, but that's the truth. Like, I can't say it any different. Like, it isn't just there for the heck of it. It's there for a reason. And in order to understand what you might need to do to heal, et cetera, you need to figure out that root cause. And so, as you said, I know that there isn't just nervous system work. You also have to look at food and all the things. Environment, it's part of the stages of what we would call neuroplastic healing, right? Even the neuroplasticians who talk about neuroplasticity and popularize it, it's like sometimes a person can improve their nervous system so much just by getting clean water, clean food, getting rubbish out of their diet, and eating more balanced meals.
Blood sugar balancing.
Yeah,
like
it's
eating cupcakes for breakfast and staying up till midnight every night. Of course, you're going to be dysregulated.
Exactly. And so there's many pieces to this proverbial pie, so to speak.
Right.
And I also know from many of my students, thousands of them, they have tried the food, they have tried the hormone improvements, they've tried the exercise, and then they're still struggling. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe there's something else And often we see this underlying dysregulation of their survival mechanisms, right? They're stuck in
Yep.
fight, flight, freeze, and then kind of the fourth element would be shutdown,
Yep.
collapse,
Yep.
which is typically where people get to. And that's where you have no energy, zero energy. We would call that chronic fatigue,
Yep.
fibromyalgia, all those buzzwords, autoimmune. And the trouble with that is once you get to that, your energy stores are so depleted
Yep.
in so many ways that, yeah, it feels like impossible to get out of that. And that's where you want the quick fix.
Right.
And so the nervous system influencer phase that we're in right now, it's darn attractive. I get it. I want to just be able to tap a few parts of my body and all of a sudden heal all my trauma.
Cross my arms and pull my earlobes down and hum. Like,
yeah.
that sounds cool. And then I'll
Yeah.
feel better and be able to get off the couch and lose 20 pounds.
It's like the ab cruncher in the 80s. If that thing really worked, you
Or
know,
the thigh master.
It's exactly, I mean, thank you. That's exactly, here's what's so crazy is, yep, the ab cruncher is mimicking, trying to work with your abdominal muscles. So yes, you need to have some core strength, 100%.
Yeah.
Just like, yes, we want the vagus nerve to be healthy, but it is not going to be, it's not going to happen by these things where we touch and pull and hum and put stimulation, you know, rods onto various parts of our body to stim it. It might work in a very quick interim way, but the thing is that's not actually laying down regulation pathways.
Right.
Right. It's just like with the thigh master. Yep. You're going to mimic contraction. You're going to contract those muscles. There might be some blood in those muscles, so you're going to see more tone. And then that makes you think that there's been a big change, but it's just a quick state shift.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we think we're getting something. We might feel something happening, but it's not getting to the root cause, which is the dysregulation of the system. And yeah, I get it. You want help. You want to feel better. And that's why in all my programs, like all of them, I've got links to yours because I feel like all the things I teach can be really supportive of the nervous system, getting the blood sugar balance, getting your light and dark cycles synced, going outside, syncing up with the earth. Just so many of these things are going to help people get a long way in their nervous system. But I do occasionally have the person that's just like, you know, and I can talk to them and tell. I can usually talk to them. It's usually a conversation or a post they put up in my group. And I'm like, it's time to look at the nervous system, you know? Because they're just like strategy. I'm doing this. I'm showing up here. I'm doing that. I'm eating this. I'm eating that. Here's my food diary. And I'm just like, woo.
A lot.
Yes. And I want to help, but there is a point that you can have all these amazing strategies and they're going to be very helpful. They're going to be a lot more helpful than staying inside all day, staying up till midnight every night, eating fast food, eating trash, eating processed foods. That's going to help tremendously. However, sometimes they've got to go further, right? Yeah. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you might know that I'm not a huge fan of taking handfuls of supplements, but She Legit is something that I see in a different category. And it's something I've been playing around with for the last couple of years. Now, if you've never heard of She Legit before, it is a tar-like substance that is found in high altitudes and is heavily regarded in traditional Ayurvedic medicine for several things. When you get She Legit, you have to be careful where you source it from because you want it to be third-party tested for things like mold and heavy metals. That is why I am a huge fan of Black Lotus She Legit and their products. They're a small family company and stand behind everything they do and third-party test everything. I've personally been taking their 200 milligram She Legit tablets and absolutely feel a big difference in my energy, cognitive function, mood, and even my sleep. Check out Black Lotus Shilajit and use code Sarah K to save 15% off everything on their website.
I would say too that the what I tend to see, and this is not everyone, but that need to have strong routine and
Yes.
lots of things in the toolbox in your backpack is good, but it also can mask a need to have absolute control over your life. Now, this doesn't mean you want your life to be out of control, but it's the difference between what we would call very controlled, contained, managed living, where you have everything lined up perfectly. That is still a sign of dysregulation from what I've seen versus being able to wake up, do some of your things, but know that if you don't get all the exact things in order,
You'll be okay.
you'll still be okay. And I'm thinking about a old client of mine. Well, she's not old. She's younger than me, but it was a long time ago. And she had severe dysregulation due to attachment wounds. So there wasn't, like horrific abuse that we might think of as a trauma. It was just these misattunements are actually really, really damaging when you're little.
Yeah.
Right. You get confused. And so when she would come to my office, this was when I was still in private practice, she would come with her purse, and her purse would have everything in it: snacks, water, essential oils, like all the devices and things to have her feel resourced.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm never going to say don't leave the home without them, because it's like a child in their blankie. They need that protection. Right. And we all know what that is, right? It's like a token of I'm safe and this is mine. As we did work together, it lessened to the point where she would just show up with her car keys and wallet. And it was so cool because she just became regulated internally. She could contain and soothe herself internally. She didn't need all these other things to keep her resourced. Now, there's nothing wrong with having some favorite things with you when you go off on a car ride or go somewhere, but option to not need them means that you have true self-regulation. And it's the same with all the practices.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, we need to have some of these things. We need to exercise and move, but one could say that real regulation happens when we can just wake up and go about our day. And there is a little bit of element of OCD that I see in a lot of people.
Oh, yes.
Right. Like, and it makes sense. If you were brought into an environment where your household was totally out of control, you have to find control. And some people find that in addiction. Some people find that in an eating disorder. Some people find that in being an overachiever. Being, a polymath and learning everything under the sun. Because if I don't know everything in the world, someone might cheat me, someone might hurt me. But at least if I know everything, I can always win, that argument or whatever. So these are the ways that these are just other ways that you see just regulation pop out that most people don't think about. And then, of course, there's the traditional autoimmune conditions, cancers, anxiety disorders, chronic pain, fibromyalgia. All that stuff has been connected to just regulation in the nervous system. And through a lot of research too. It's not just what we think happens. We've seen this through the ACE study, as I've talked to you about before. So we need it all.
Yeah, we do need it all. It's all important. Man. And you've got so many amazing, wonderful stories on your YouTube channel. I've gone through your 21 day, I've gone through your 12-week, but for somebody who's just listening, I mean, what does that look like? Because I feel like people get upset if you kind of talk in vague terms, and I want to definitely help people, but going through nervous system hacks, going through, these like $49 ebook programs online. Is there a harm in doing that? Is there, like, where should people actually even really start if they know that this is possibly an issue for them?
This is a tough one because I've seen colleagues of mine who are also, because I've got a couple trainings under my belt, not just somatic experiencing, but the Feldenkrais method. I've also been trained to work with early trauma at a touch level with my mentors, Kathy Kane and Steve Terrell. So what I'm bringing to the table is is amalgamation of like three very powerful methodologies.
Mm.
But what I've seen, and I'm just going to name it because I've seen this, I've seen SE colleagues of mine, not people I know personally, but I know they're SE trained, who have actually been teaching inaccurate information in their courses. And the
Oh.
only reason I know that is because my senior students who are now training under me to be practitioners, a lot of my students are just thirsty for so much knowledge. And I appreciate that they're wanting to learn from other teachers. I think that's really important. But then, Sarah, I get like these screenshots and these videos sent to me from my students where these people are talking about, say, the polyvagal theory, and they've got it dead effing wrong.
Oh,
And I'm
no.
like, either they missed that lecture or they misinterpreted it, or the person teaching them didn't have it accurate. And then they second guess if what I'm teaching is accurate. And then, of course, someone's like, well, how come Irene is right? How come that other person isn't right? And so this is where it gets really difficult because it's almost like this strange pissing contest, if I use that word, of
Yeah.
like, well, who's right? Who's got it accurate? So I guess I could say, because of my connections with higher level colleagues, and the training that I've had, what we teach. So I'll start with this, Sarah. What we teach in the courses, 21 Day and SPSM, and what is in, say, my ebooks, because I have ebooks that are free on my site that talk about polyvagal, for example. The information is accurate. And when we have had something that's maybe been slightly inaccurate or there's been an improvement in the knowledge, we have gone in and we fixed it. So that's one thing that I will offer. I'm willing to be wrong. Like if someone is like, you know what, Irene, actually, it's this branch of the parasympathetic, not that one. I'll be like, oh, and then I'll verify it and then I'll make a change. So to go back to your question, what about these $49 ebooks that other people have? Here's the thing, you have to try them. But I also would say buyer beware because you want to make sure that the information in there is accurate.
Yeah.
So, if one was to really try to, I don't know, cross-reference some of the information, then I would say go to my vlogs on polyvagal, go to my ebooks on the 5 stages of neuroplastic healing. The best place to start if one wants to start small is the 21-day nervous system tune-up. But of course, if one wants to do a bigger initiation and education, then Smart Body, Smart Mind will give a person everything that I've learned in my SE trainings and my Feldenkrais trainings to the degree that I can in 12 weeks, of course. And then in there's practical lessons, Feldenkraisian lessons, lessons that teach SE concepts, lessons that teach working with early trauma at the stress organ level. I know you've done the kidney adrenals and the gut and the brainstem work and the Feldenkrais work. So it's not just theory, it's also taking that theory and then teaching it in a practical way to apply it to the body.
That makes so much sense.
It's a tough one because we're in the Wild West right now.
Yeah, we have.
And there's nothing that governs and sanctions all these people that are teaching.
Yeah.
It's like you can't have a medical doctor. You can't have someone that says, I'm a medical doctor. I'm going to teach you, I don't know, how to perform minor surgery for sutures.
Right.
I mean, maybe there would be on YouTube. Everything's on YouTube these days. But my hope is that there isn't like a video on YouTube on how to do an appendectomy. Like maybe there is. Now I'm going to go look it up probably after we finish this. But that would be, you would get in trouble if you were trying to teach people how to do basic surgery, even dentistry or even law. You get in big trouble if you practice law illegally.
Huge.
And so we're in this, to paint that picture, we're in a really weird situation where anybody can teach this stuff. And then, of course, the consumer, the person interested, has to discern. And if you can't discern, it's really confusing. So I guess, if I look at the track record that we've had with our students, we've been doing this program, Smart Body, Smart Mind, for many years. The next round is the 17th round. You know, we've had positive feedback, results, dozens and dozens of case studies, and people too, Sarah, that we track. Like, I don't just do an interview with someone and then that's it. Like, I like to keep up and be like, how are you doing now? How are you doing 3 years later? As
Yeah.
opposed to this is some miracle cure and then everything just falls apart.
Mm, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think people are really, really looking for like something long term, something that's not just a quick fix. It's appealing, but I think people are kind of really fed
I
up
hope
with it.
so.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think it's just harmful in all aspects for
Mm.
people. And that's my wish for anybody listening to the show, is just to learn how to decipher, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. And I think the whole like, oh, you're just doing it wrong. Um, it's so easy to say that to people, and
Mm.
do you get that with people in your programs even? Because it's, I think it's rampant. But
Yeah. I mean, I would say that one of the things that occurs when someone goes early into the work that I've taught online is if there isn't a deep belief in knowing that this is going to work, you almost have to have a belief that your system can heal and that it will heal with the right information. Many of my students who have amazing stories, and I'll admit some of their stories seem too good to be true.
mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about one lady, Darla, who's in her early 60s. She had end stage organ failure when she found our work. She had a really significant car accident in her younger years. She had a tear in her spinal cord, and her doctors basically just said, "You're never going to be the same again. You're going to be on a medication for the rest of your life." And she kind of gave them the finger and said, well, let's see, I'm going to figure out how to do this. She has strong faith too, so that helped. But when you look at her trajectory, she didn't have some miracle cure in like 2 months. She
Yeah.
had to work at it and work at it. And now she's just this vibrant, kick-ass grandma who's
Mm-hmm.
teaching art to elementary school kids. Like, she went and did her art therapy certificate, and she's like working in a school system teaching art to little people at like age 65.
Yeah.
And she was told she would never contribute to society ever again. But her changes happened slowly over time. And people will say, and you probably remember this maybe, Sarah, when you first started to do the orienting exercise, it's like, what is this going to do? I'm just looking around. How can this help all these problems? And the course is more than that, but there are these subtleties that we're teaching you that should have happened when we were little.
Yeah.
And you have a little one now that's growing. Your little one isn't going to learn how to walk and talk in 2 weeks.
Right.
It seems ridiculous to say that. So people think that their nervous system is going to heal in like a couple months when it's been not well for a lifetime. It takes some time.
Right.
But we've seen so many case studies where when people just stick with it and they
Yeah.
stick with it and they stick with it, just like with your clients with circadian health and quantum health, you'll feel some shifts immediately, no doubt. But the real like sticking point is when the consistency rules over your desire to make it better immediately. And
Yeah.
that's the part that I'm not sure if I answered your question, but this need to like just trust. There's been enough people who've gone through this curriculum, and I can't say everyone, this will work for everyone because I can't say that. But
Yeah.
those that go in and really commit and stick with it, they have some pretty miraculous changes, but the miracle doesn't happen overnight. And
Yeah.
that's the key. But people have said, I can't believe this has changed these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And the one thing that we hear the most from our older students is, I wish I had had this in my 20s. I wish I had had this in my 30s, in my 40s, even my 50s, because we have some people in their 80s who have done Smart Body, Smart Mind. And it's so heartwarming because,
Mm,
how many 80-year-olds do we know? That's like our parents' age who are actively wanting to still heal when it could be like, I'm old, it doesn't matter. I'll just let this disease take me over and be done with it. It just shows that it doesn't matter what age we are. We just have to have that desire
yeah.
to get
Yeah.
better and to be more whole. And that's what SPSM really teaches people.
Yeah. And I think it's so important because, like I said, it's in all my courses, whether it's nutrition or hydration or anything like that. There
Mhm.
is this element that um, has got to be addressed with the nervous system,
Yeah.
or everything that you're doing just isn't going to work as well.
Yeah.
And I know we've
Yeah.
talked about autoimmune conditions
Yeah.
before ad nauseum. I know we've done a whole entire episode
Yeah.
about them, but
Yeah.
it's a continual thing, and I think it's multifaceted. I think it's the food we're
Mhm.
eating, the water we're drinking,
Mhm.
the air we're breathing. There's
Mhm.
so many things that are
Mhm.
playing into um, our health. But
Yeah.
maybe we could just do a brief little
Sure.
overview.
Autoimmune overview.
Autoimmune. Yeah, just because it just keeps coming up, and mold toxicity, and
Mhm.
yeah, so
So,
many things.
yeah, if I make it quick, basically you've got this autonomic nervous system that
Mhm.
governs our survival mechanisms, so fight, flight, freeze, shut down. But our autonomic nervous system also governs our digestion, our lymph, our drainage, our respiration, our cardiovascular, all the things. Like every functioning system is connected to this peripheral nervous system, which is part of that is the autonomic nervous system.
Yep.
And so what happens if I simplify it, if someone is if their default is to live in survival stress, whether that's high anxiety or deep shutdown or kind of this hyper vigilant, the world is out to get me, I can't trust anybody, I have to hide. Like these are elements and archetypes of a dysregulated nervous system. And we can flip, one person can flip between these,
Yep.
right? In some situations, someone might be extroverted and in that fight flight energy, the joy of the party, all these things. I think of
Yeah.
like some comedians that we know who have passed, like Robin Williams. Of course, I don't know him personally, but he was always vibrating at a very high level, right? In
Yeah.
public. I have no doubt that when he was on his own, there was deep depression. There was the flip side,
Definitely.
collapse,
Yeah.
which is, why his life ended so early. And so when we have this flux between fight, flight, freeze, and this collapse shutdown, the autonomic nervous system can't take care of the organ systems.
Yeah.
It does not go into true rest digest. It doesn't go into repair. It doesn't go into cell repair, mitochondrial repair, autophagy, all these things that we need to clean house with at night. We might sleep for 15 hours, but if our sleep is more like a drugged sleep, a shutdown sleep, we're not in that good rest digest mode. So
Right.
over time, if we don't address the survival physiology, over time, the system just tatters and tatters, and that's where we get what we might call autoimmune. The
Yep.
interesting thing is that we're seeing this younger and younger and younger in folk and humans. And I think it is, as you said, so much is due to the toxins in the food, the air, the water, but also um, the media, and not media in terms of what is put out, but the devices, the blue light, the non-native EMFs. That is completely different to say when we were kids, right?
Yep.
So I do think that there's this compounding effect where we're now being bombarded with so many other things that this part of us, this autonomic nervous system part that needs to repair, it's just like, I can't handle it anymore, guys.
Yep.
It's kind of like I give up. And then that's
Yep.
where we crash. In the somatic experiencing world, we would call autoimmune a syndrome. just like
Mm,
we call fibromyalgia a syndrome, severe PMS, anxiety disorders, Raynaud's, RSD,
mm,
migraine headache, phobias, like even tics and that, like these responses to the environment that aren't accurate. And so sensitivities, multiple chemical sensitivities would be another one.
yep.
And so then you throw in something like mold or a big stress. Yeah, that can be the culprit, but the system can't handle it because the autonomic nervous system is so worried about fight, flight, freeze, shutdown.
Right.
So it can't do the housekeeping, it can't do the detoxing naturally, which is also why everybody is all crazy about detoxing now, because the system's
Yes.
pathways aren't doing what they're supposed to naturally because of all the things, right? The stagnation, the sitting, and so the story goes. So autoimmune is a huge one, and I've seen many of my students heal severe autoimmune conditions, and they've also improved their diet and they've
Yep.
improved their circadian rhythms and all these things. But if they don't get into the trauma and the deep hurt that put their system into dysregulation, often it's when they were young.
Yep.
Often it's even in utero, it's birth trauma, it's abuse that happened like under the age of 10,
Yep.
right? That stuff has to get dealt with because it doesn't go away with time. That's the
Yep.
other thing,
Yep.
right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's my little spiel on autoimmune and
Yeah.
syndromes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's the missing piece for a lot of people because if you think about it, the nervous system, I don't know that it controls the entire body, so to speak, but it is intertwined
Of
with the
course.
entire body, with every single system. And
Yeah.
so, part of someone having chronic gut issues, chronic
Mhm.
digestion issues, well, guess what's going to happen if your nervous system is dysregulated, even if you have all the right supplements, even if you do all the right things, there's
Mhm.
still that one piece that needs to be accounted for,
Yeah.
right? Like,
If,
and
yeah.
supported. And it's
Yes.
not, because I've done Smart Body, Smart Mind, and I've
Mhm.
done the 21 day. It's not a regiment of you're going to wake up and do these 10 exercises.
No,
And you're going to do it's not that, right?
no. It isn't. I mean, you could treat it that way, but I've seen people go through the course in a more militant fashion
Mm,
and it doesn't integrate. It's about integrating the lesson. It's kind of like learning your ABCs and one, two, threes and learning the alphabet.
hmm
You can learn the alphabet really, really well or how to count. Like I always use this classic example. I can count to 20 in German really well and fool someone into
Yep.
thinking I can speak German. I can't speak German, but I can
Yep.
say the numbers. So what happens is a lot of people go through the motions of doing the lessons,
Yep.
but they're not connecting it and integrating it into their life. And that's the part that makes the work really sing. You've
hmm
got to integrate it with how you are when you get into your car. What
Right.
is it like when you're at the grocery store? What is it like when you're sitting down and eating dinner with your family? Have you completely lost connection to what you've learned? Or are you just bringing in some little pieces to keep stringing together the ABCs to create language? So I often say the course is more like learning a new language than it is these regimented exercises.
Right.
Now, people will use the exercises as a way to resource
Right.
and as a way to bring their system down. A lot of people will say that, like Irene, you're the first person I listen to in the morning and the last person I listen to at night. I'm like, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. The key
Yep.
is, are you listening to yourself now?
Right.
So are you taking my lead, just like your little one is going to learn from you certain things, right? By modeling and seeing. And then eventually he'll know how to do some of these things on his own, right?
Right.
And
Right.
it's the same kind of thing. So it's kind of, people will say, so is this like reparenting myself? And I go, no, because that can never happen through me. But
Right. No.
it's teaching a person how to really be in their body and how to connect it with the environment and how to notice when the survival physiology ramps up,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or when it descends, and then how to move through that so that you're not stuck in these reactive responses,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
The final thing I might say is it isn't just about you internally, it's about how you connect with the environment. And
Yep.
that is often what I see missing in a lot of the nervous system influencer space is they're all about just felt sense, or it's all
Yep.
about shaking the trauma out, or it's all about movements of the eyes. It's like, yeah, those are part of it. But again, it's like saying to someone language is about just saying ABC.
Right.
Math
Exactly.
is just one, two, three. It's not that simple. Like cooking soup isn't just carrots, onions, and celery. It's all the other
Correct.
things that go into it. And I do think, Sarah, that a lot of the reason why we're struggling with this integration piece, and this is more macro, is most of us were taught in an education system where it's math, and then it's
Yep.
science, and then it's
Yep.
PE, and then
Yep.
it's creativity, and then it's art, right?
Yep.
Where we're not really in a class where we're learning how to do all these things in an integrated whole. And that's what is happening in SPSM. The
Yep.
goal is to get integrated into yourself, into your emotions, sensations, movements with the environment, knowing that you've got past trauma, because we all do, and then how we can move out of that, and then encounter stress in the current world, real time, and not have it become toxic, because that's the other thing.
Right.
We have to learn how to handle future traumas and
Yes.
future stresses,
Exactly. Yeah.
because they're
I
going to
think
keep happening.
right. And that's the thing. Like, I think people get hung up because I know I do with having stressful things and traumatic things
Yeah.
happen in life
Yeah.
and being like, oh, I'm traumatized. I'm screwed. Like, there's,
Yeah.
I'm in so much trouble now because I just went through this horribly traumatic thing. And it's like,
Thing.
yeah, honestly,
Mhm.
you can't get away from that. Like
Life.
that's not
Yeah.
a thing. You
Yeah.
you are going to continue to have things and it's like
Yeah.
how do you move through those things and how do you maintain like not leaving your body? I think that was one of the
Yeah.
most impactful things that I
Yeah.
from you in the beginning is like when I'm sitting here talking to you, like when I've got
Mhm.
like, something going on with one of my kids, I'm
Mhm.
constantly like orienting,
Yeah.
and feeling my butt in my chair, like that simple, or just like bringing my hands together,
Hands.
touching my hands together. Like
Yep.
I'm constantly trying to come back to where I am,
Yep. Yep.
Um, and yeah, I think that's so crucial. And it's missing from people because they
Mm.
think it's like a magic set of exercises or,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
things
You
that they're
won't
going,
get that in my courses. I'll just say that right. If someone's looking for a magic set of exercises where it's like, when you feel this emotion, do this. When you feel
right,
that body pain, do this. We've had people try to get me to do a list.
right,
I'm like, if you're asking me that, you don't get it. And it's not, I don't say that in a mean way. It's like, this isn't about that, because one person might have sharp pain in a body part and it's because of emotion. Somebody might have sharp pain in a body part and it's just because there's a muscle strain.
yeah,
Somebody might have a sharp pain somewhere and it's something that's old that's
right,
coming up, and that requires listening and maybe having a memory
yeah,
flash.
yeah, exactly,
And if I try to give you this magical list of do this, I have now done a disservice,
right,
because it's you're the system that needs, you have to, I'm giving you the ABCs and one, two, threes. You've got to put the language together.
right, right,
And I do think that is why we have had so much success, is because I'm not trying to micromanage people's symptoms.
yeah, exactly.
I'm teaching them, through the lessons and the recordings and the practices, how to come back to self
Mm-hmm.
and trust
Mm-hmm.
and resource and go to the environment. And it's what we're meant to do, right, Sarah? Like that's just what
Yep.
we're meant to do as humans.
Yep.
So that's where the simplicity comes in, and it takes some time,
Yep.
If we're
Absolutely.
hard conditioned into certain ways, and this means this. Whenever I have this, it's this. Whenever there's a full moon, this is going to happen. Whenever it's
Right.
this is going. It's like, the moment we have that kind of dogmatic thinking, we have to peel that off too.
Yep.
Right? Like, oh, I'm only a visual learner, or it's
Right.
like, actually humans are meant to learn in multiple ways. It's just how we were trained
Mm-hmm.
to learn. Like, this is the part that I think is so cool. We don't realize how much potential we have.
Exactly. We really don't.
We don't.
It's limitless. And I think the more that we box ourselves in that
Mhm.
way, the less enjoyment we're going to get out of life and the less ability we'll
Yeah.
have to see
Yeah.
what's right in front of us and
Yeah.
experience what's right in front of us. Because I think really that is nervous system regulation. I don't know if you agree, of just like, oh, I'm sitting in my chair at my desk.
Mhm.
I can feel my feet touching the ground, just like
Mhm. Being.
in every moment, because
Yeah.
we spend so much time like scrolling, looking,
Yeah.
searching,
Yeah.
and trying to like leave the situation, leave our body in that moment, that
Mhm.
we lose
Yeah.
out on a lot of things. So yeah, I always love these conversations because I think that they're so crucial for
Mm.
people, and just like, yeah, it's so simple. Um,
Mhm.
but it does require, like, I don't want to say
So work.
work,
It's
but
work. It's
yeah,
work.
yeah,
I
okay,
mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You've got to do some work. You've got to do some, like you got to be a bit of a scholar. If you're not
yeah,
interested in being a scholar of your body, this won't work. I'll be really
right,
honest.
yeah,
If you're
agree.
looking to just be given a pill to pop, not to say that there aren't times and places for that, with emergencies that are medical in nature, like I get that.
Hmm.
But the folks that really like blow it out of the park, to use metaphors, and mix them, like they're the ones they're studious.
Hmm.
And it's not like 10 hours a day either. It can be just like 15 minutes a day. And then you apply that learning to all the things you do, right?
Yep,
It can be as little or as big as you want, but it's the consistency, and you got to use your brain. Like you have to
yep,
be interested in
have to,
learning. It's
absolutely.
learning is the most important part. The healing comes after.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what I appreciate so much about what you do, is the education piece.
Hmm.
Because I think, and that's what I try to do in my work as well, whether it's free content or when you get into
Yeah,
an
your
actual
courses.
program, is like,
Yeah,
I want you to understand why I'm telling you to do this. I don't
yeah.
want to just tell you to do something. I want you to understand like why I'm telling you to do this, what it does in your body,
Hmm.
and how it benefits your body, how
Yeah,
it benefits you on a cellular level. Because if
yeah,
you just go at something from just do it, this will help this, like,
yeah.
think there's less, I don't want to say compliance, but yes, compliance, but also um, the desire to do the thing. It's just like, oh, here's just
It
another person telling me to do this and
yeah.
help me. I
It
think,
goes back, sorry to interrupt you, Sarah.
yeah, yeah,
It goes back to our school system of being told you've got to memorize this and regurgitate it.
yeah,
But
exactly.
the good teachers in school knew how to make it yours. Like they
Right,
figured out they wanted you to teach them what this meant,
right,
right?
right,
Because God only knows I regurgitated a lot of stuff in university.
right,
Maybe I understood it at the time, but I can't tell you all the functions of all the organs in the body because it wasn't coming from internal. It's like I got to pass this test or math
right,
or something, right?
right.
And I think that the moment we are taught it in a way that gets interesting to our system, something clicks because we feel it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like with you and sunrise, like right when people start to do that, if they don't get it, they miss it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you feel it when I'm in a hotel room and I don't have a window, which drives me crazy. Like I feel a little scattered and I have to like go outside and get that air and that sun. Because otherwise I just don't feel as human. And it's the same way with the nervous system. When people start to get it, they start to listen to their bodies in a different way. And people will say, I couldn't imagine not having this now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hear that over and over again. I mean, the joke we often say is, I am no longer in the matrix. Like, I'm out of the
That's
matrix, right?
100%.
I've kind of been red pilled into this nervous system stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've seen people try to ignore it, but usually the consequences are pretty fierce and bad when
Yeah.
you've opened up to this and then you try to ignore it.
Yeah.
That actually is not good, because then you've
No.
had an opening into the possibility, and then your conditioning or circumstance is making you shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually pretty dangerous, I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. Well,
yeah,
I love this conversation, and
yeah,
I think it's been so super helpful. And I just have the dates because this will come
yep,
out on February 26th. So that your program's actually going to have been open
for a day. Yeah,
day before. So
yep,
registration February 25th through March 4th.
you got it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan. Like I said, it's already in all of my programs. I know a lot of
Hmm.
people come to you
Yeah.
through just having done some of my stuff, and they want to go to this next level.
Hmm.
They really want to understand like what's next.
Yeah. It's a good next step.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I will also say, your work and my work at the level they go together so well.
They do. They really, really,
If you can work with your courses and my courses at the same time, I mean, it's like supercharging your healing, in my opinion, and your learning.
yeah,
And pretty much all of my senior students are fully like into circadian biology, and it's so fun to watch them
I love it.
get synced up, and then now they're teaching it to their people, and it's great. So we're
Yeah,
causing this fun ripple effect that shows healing is not just one thing, it's a collaboration
yeah,
of people and experts, and then that getting out to more people. So they go really well together.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Well,
Thanks
this
for
has been
having
super fun.
me.
And as
Mhm.
always, it's always fun to talk and, just get ideas and hopefully get people's brains thinking in a different direction. And,
Yeah, I
yeah,
hope so.
yeah, I'm sure we'll have more good conversations in the future, but, we'll put all the links down in the show notes if people are interested in learning more. You've got free stuff as well. Your YouTube channel is a abundance of information.
Tons.
That's how I
Yeah.
found you. That's how I got started in all this.
Yeah.
I was just searching on YouTube, and it's
Hmm.
like you watch one and then you got to watch the other. And
Hmm. It's a rabbit hole.
it is a rabbit hole,
A
but
good
it's a
one.
really interesting one. It's a good one. So I recommend anybody that just wants to learn those things to start there.
Mhm. Definitely.
All right. Well,
Thanks, Sarah.
thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Evolving Wellness Podcast. Just a quick little reminder, this is not medical advice nor meant to be taken as a substitute for working one-on-one with a healthcare practitioner. And if you enjoy the show, please head on over to Apple or Spotify to leave the show up to a 5-star review. If you're over on YouTube, please leave us a like, leave us a comment. I really appreciate you for being here, for listening to the show, and your support means the world to me as I continue to try to pull guests from around the world to bring you informative content to empower you to make decisions about your own health. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.